The old man was right. The old man at the bus stop had a face like crumpled paper, eyes sunken deep, like they'd seen too much. His voice rasped, barely above a whisper, when he leaned toward me. "Don't look back," he said, his breath sour with age and something sharp, like fear. I nodded, more to shake him off than to agree. The bus was late, the air damp with the threat of rain, and I just wanted to get home. His words clung to me, though sticky as the fog rolling in from the woods across the road. I was alone now. The old man had shuffled off, his coat flapping like a tattered sail, vanishing into the mist. The bus stop was just a slab of concrete, no shelter, no bench, just a rusted sign creaking in the wind. I checked my phone. No signal. Of course. The woods loomed, dark and silent, their edges blurring into the gray. Something about them felt wrong, like they were watching. I shook it off. Just trees, I told myself. Just the cold. But I looked back. It wasn't a choice, not really. My neck turned before I could stop it, like some instinct had taken over. The woods stared back. Not a sound, not a bird, not a rustle. Just stillness. Too still. My stomach twisted, a small knot of unease. I turned forward again, heart thumping, and that's when I heard it. A whisper. Not words, not exactly, but something low, like breath over dry leaves. It came from behind me. I froze. The air felt heavier now, pressing against my skin. I didn't look back again. I wouldn't. The old man's warning echoed in my head, louder than the whisper. My hands shoved deeper into my pockets, fingers brushing the cold metal of my keys. I focused on that, the sharp edges, the familiar weight. Anything to keep my mind from wandering back to the woods. The whisper came again, closer this time, curling around my ears like smoke. I walked a few steps, away from the bus stop, toward the road. The fog thickened, swallowing the horizon. No cars. No lights. Just me and the sound. It wasn't human. I knew that much. It wasn't words, but it felt like it wanted something. Like it was calling me. My legs moved faster, though I didn't know where I was going. The bus wasn't coming. I'd known that since the old man left. The road stretched empty in both directions, a gray ribbon fading into the mist. The whisper followed, soft but persistent, like it was pacing me. My breath hitched. I could feel it now, not just hear it. A presence, cold and vast, brushing against the back of my neck. I stopped. The whisper stopped too. Silence rushed in, heavy, suffocating. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might burst. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The air was thick, like I was breathing through wet cloth. I closed my eyes, just for a second, trying to steady myself. Big mistake. The whisper came back, sharper now, like a blade grazing my spine. My eyes snapped open. The fog had crept closer, curling around my ankles like fingers. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, listening to that sound. It wasn't just behind me anymore. It was everywhere, circling, weaving through the fog. I took a step, then another, my shoes scraping against the gravel. The whisper shifted, matching my pace. It wasn't loud, never loud, but it filled everything. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to drown it out, but my voice caught in my throat. What was it? What did it want? The old man knew. He'd known and he'd warned me. Don't look back. I'd already broken that rule once. I wouldn't do it again. I forced myself to walk, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The fog pressed in, cold and damp, sticking to my skin. The whisper grew softer, but it didn't stop. It was waiting. I could feel it. Waiting for me to slip, to turn, to give in. I don't remember how I got home. The fog must have cleared, the road must have led somewhere, but all I recall is the whisper fading, just for a moment, as I stumbled through my front door. I locked it behind me, hands shaking, and sank to the floor. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I waited, listening, half expecting that sound to follow me inside. It didn't. Not then. But I hear it now, sometimes late at night, when the house creaks and the wind hums through the cracks. It's faint, just a breath, but it's there. And I know, deep down, it's still waiting. For the next time I look back. My house felt different after that night. The walls seemed closer, the shadows sharper. I kept the lights on, all of them, even during the day. The glow helped, but not enough. The whisper lingered in my mind, a ghost of a sound that wouldn't leave. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? A creepy old man, a weird noise, and me, freaking out over nothing. That's what they'd say. But it wasn't nothing. I knew that. I stayed inside for days. Work called, left voicemails I didn't answer. The world outside my windows felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. The woods were out there, somewhere beyond the town, and I could still feel their pull. Like they were waiting for me to step outside, to make another mistake. I didn't. I ordered groceries online, kept the curtains drawn, and tried to pretend everything was fine. It wasn't. The first time I heard it again, I was in the kitchen. Midnight, maybe later. I was making tea, something to calm my nerves. The kettle hissed, steam curling up like the fog from that night. Then it came. Soft, barely there, like a sigh from another room. I dropped the mug. It shattered, porcelain scattering across the floor. I stood there, heart racing, listening. The whisper didn't stop. It was inside now, in my house, in my head. I checked the locks, the windows, everything. All secure. But the sound didn't care about locks. I told myself it was the wind. Old houses creak, right? Pipes groan, floors settle. I swept up the broken mug, hands trembling, and made another cup of tea. The whisper followed me, faint but steady, like it was pacing the edges of the room. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steam rising from my cup, trying to focus on anything else. The clock ticked. The fridge hummed. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. But the whisper wove through them, threading itself into every silence. Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, eyes on the ceiling, waiting for it to come again. It always did. Sometimes it was so faint I thought I'd imagined it. Other times it was closer, brushing against my ears like a cold finger. I started sleeping with the TV on, volume low, just enough to drown it out. It didn't work. The whisper found a way through, slipping into the pauses between words, the gaps in the static. I started noticing things. Small things at first. A shadow moving in the corner of my eye, gone when I turned. A door I swore I closed standing ajar. The air in the house felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I checked the basement, the attic, every corner. Nothing. Just dust and cobwebs. But the feeling stayed, like something was watching, waiting for me to let my guard down. One night, I found a book on my shelf I didn't recognize. Old, leather-bound, no title on the spine. I don't know why I opened it. The pages were brittle, yellowed, covered in handwriting I couldn't read. Not English, not anything I knew. The whisper came louder then, sharp and urgent, like it was excited. I slammed the book shut, shoved it back on the shelf. My hands shook so bad I could barely hold it. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I tried to find the book again. It was gone. I tore through the shelves, pulled every book down, but it wasn't there. The whisper laughed. Not a real laugh, not human, but a sound that felt like it was mocking me. I stopped looking. I stopped leaving my room, except for food or water. The house wasn't safe anymore. I wasn't safe. I thought about the old man. His warning. Don't look back. I hadn't just looked back at the bus stop. I was looking back now, every day, trying to make sense of it. The whisper knew. It fed on it, grew stronger every time I let it in. I had to stop. I had to move forward, ignore it, pretend it wasn't there. But how do you ignore something that's already inside you? The whisper hasn't stopped. It's quieter now sometimes, but it's always there. Waiting. I keep the lights on. I keep moving. But I know it's still out there, in the woods, in the fog, in the corners of my house. And I know, one day, I'll look back again. The whisper was part of me now. I couldn't shake it, no matter how hard I tried. It followed me through the house, a shadow I couldn't see but always felt. I stopped going near the windows. The woods were out there, somewhere, and I didn't want to risk seeing them. Not even a glimpse. The old man's warning was a chain around my thoughts, heavy and tight. Don't look back. I hadn't, not since that night at the bus stop. But the whisper didn't need me to look. It was already here. I started noticing my reflection. Not in mirrors, as caught in the fog, I saw it in the glass of my front door, distorted, stretched thin. My eyes looked wrong, too wide, too dark. I blinked, and it was just me again, tired and pale. I laughed it off, nervous, shaky. Just my imagination, I told myself. The whisper hummed, low and steady, like it was watching. I turned away from the glass, heart pounding, and locked the door again. The air felt colder, sharper, like it was biting into me. I found something that night. On my wrist, a mark. Small, faint, like a smudge of ink at first. I scrubbed at it in the bathroom, soap and hot water, but it didn't fade. It was a shape, jagged, like a broken rune. I hadn't seen it before, I swear. But there it was, etched into my skin. The whisper spiked, sharp and gleeful, like it had been waiting for this. I pulled my sleeve down, hid it. My hands shook. I didn't sleep. The mark grew. Not fast, but steady. Each morning, it was a little darker, a little clearer. Lines twisting, curling, like something alive. I tried to ignore it, kept my sleeves long, but I could feel it. Not pain, not exactly, but a weight. Like it was pulling at me, tying me to something I couldn't see. The whisper was louder when I looked at it, a low hum that buzzed in my bones. I started wearing a watch, covering it, pretending it wasn't there. It didn't help. I went back to work, eventually. Had to. Bills don't pay themselves. My coworkers noticed the change in me, the way I flinched at shadows, the way I avoided windows. "You okay?" they'd ask, their voices soft, concerned. I'd nod, force a smile. "Fine," I'd say. "Just tired." The whisper laughed, a dry rustle in my ears. They didn't hear it. They didn't see the mark. But it was there, growing, and so was the sound. Nights were the worst. The house creaked, the whisper wove through every sound. I'd lie in bed, eyes on the ceiling, counting my breaths to keep it at bay. One night I heard footsteps. Not outside, not in the hall. Inside my room. Soft, deliberate, like someone pacing. I didn't look. I pulled the covers over my head, like a kid scared of the dark. The whisper was there, steady, urging me to turn, to see. I didn't. I wouldn't. The mark was changing me. I could feel it. Not just my skin, but my thoughts. I was jumpy, distracted, always listening for that sound. I started seeing things, too. Shadows that moved too fast, shapes in the corners of my vision. Once, in the bathroom mirror, I saw something behind me. Not a person, not exactly. A blur, tall and thin, gone when I turned. The whisper surged, triumphant, like it had won something. I stopped using mirrors. I tried to find the old man. Went back to the bus stop, waited for hours. No sign of him. The woods were still there, across the road, silent and heavy. I didn't look. I asked around town, described him, his crumpled face, his tattered coat. Nobody knew him. Like he never existed. The whisper was softer there, at the bus stop, but it was still there. Watching. Waiting. I don't know what it wants. The mark, the whisper, the shadows. They're connected, I'm sure of it. I feel it in my gut, a cold knot that never loosens. I keep moving, keep the lights on, keep my eyes forward. But the mark is darker now, the lines sharper, like it's writing itself into me. And the whisper is always there, soft and patient, waiting for me to break. The mark was alive. I know how that sounds, but it's true. I could feel it moving, not on my skin but under it, like a pulse. It was darker now, the lines twisting into something I couldn't name. A symbol, maybe, or a word in a language I didn't know. I stopped looking at it, kept my sleeves long, but I could feel it. Always. The whisper was its voice, low and constant, like it was speaking through the mark. I was losing myself, piece by piece. I tried to leave town. Packed a bag, got in my car, drove toward the highway. The whisper followed. Louder, sharper, like it was angry. The mark burned, not pain but heat, spreading up my arm. I pulled over, hands shaking, and checked the rearview mirror. Nothing behind me. Just the road, empty and gray, stretching back to the woods. I didn't look long. I couldn't. The old man's warning was a drumbeat in my head. Don't look back. I turned around. Not because I wanted to, but because the road felt wrong. The air was too thick, the sky too low. The whisper was everywhere, filling the car, pressing against my skull. I drove home, locked the doors, and sat in the dark. The lights didn't help anymore. They just made the shadows sharper, more defined. I saw things in them now, not just blurs. Shapes. Tall, thin, with eyes that weren't eyes. The whisper was their breath, cold and endless. I stopped eating much. Food tasted wrong, like ash. I drank coffee, kept myself awake. Sleep meant dreams, and the dreams were worse. In them, I was in the woods, surrounded by fog, the whisper so loud it drowned out my thoughts. I'd see the old man, his face crumbling, pointing at me. You looked, he'd say, and the mark would glow, bright as fire, pulling me towards something in the trees. I'd wake up gasping, the whisper still there, soft but smug. I tried to fight it. Kept busy, cleaned the house, rearranged furniture. Anything to fill the silence. But the whisper slipped through, weaving into the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge. The mark spread, inching up my arm, curling toward my chest. I could feel it pulling, not just my body but my mind. Thoughts came unbidden, images of the woods, the fog, the thing waiting there. I pushed them away, but they kept coming, stronger each time. One night I heard singing. Not loud, not clear, but a melody, faint and warped, like it was underwater. It came from the backyard, where the trees pressed close to the fence. I didn't go out. I didn't look. I turned the TV on, cranked the volume, but the singing bled through, mixing with the whisper. It wasn't human. I knew that. It was calling me, pulling at the mark, urging me to step outside. I stayed in, curled on the couch, hands over my ears. The house wasn't mine anymore. The walls felt foreign, the air heavy with something I couldn't name. Doors opened on their own, just a crack, enough to make me doubt. Shadows moved when I wasn't looking, slipping behind furniture, pooling in corners. The whisper was louder now, not just a sound but a weight, pressing me down. I wanted to run, but where? The woods were out there, waiting, and the mark was on me, in me, tying me to them. I thought about the old man again. His warning, his fear. He knew something, saw something. I wondered if he'd heard the whisper too, if he'd carried a mark. I'd never find him. I knew that now. He was gone, swallowed by the fog, or maybe he'd never been real. Just a warning, a message I didn't heed. The whisper didn't care. It had me now, and it wasn't letting go. I'm still here, in this house, in the skin. The mark is darker, the whisper louder. I don't know how long I can keep this up, keep my eyes forward, keep moving. The pull is stronger now, the wood's closer, even though I haven't left. I feel it, every moment, waiting for me to give in. I'm not sure who I am anymore. The mark covers my arm now, a dark web of lines that pulse when I'm quiet. The whisper is constant, a hum that never stops, threading through every thought. It's not just sound. It's feeling, weight, a presence that clings to me like damp cloth. I don't leave the house. The world outside is too close to the woods, too close to whatever's waiting. I stay inside, lights on, TV blaring, trying to drown it out. It doesn't work. The mark moves when I'm not looking. I'll catch it in the mirror, just a glance, and it's shifted, grown, the lines sharper, more deliberate. It's not random. It's a pattern, a message I can't read but feel. It pulls at me, not my body but something deeper, like it's rewriting me from the inside. The whisper agrees, soft and eager, urging me to listen, to understand. I don't want to. I cover the mark with bandages, long sleeves, anything to hide it. It doesn't help. I can still feel it. The house is alive now. Not in a good way. Doors creak open at night, just an inch, enough to make my heart stop. Shadows pool in corners, thicker than they should be, moving when I blink. I see things now, not just blurs. Figures tall and wrong, with limbs too long, eyes that aren't eyes. They don't speak, but the whisper does, carrying their will. It's louder when they're near, a cold rush that fills my chest. I don't look at them. I can't. I tried burning the mark once. Stupid, desperate. I held a lighter to my skin, just for a second, thinking fire might erase it. The pain was sharp, bright, but the mark stayed. Clearer, darker, like I'd fed it. The whisper laughed, a dry, scraping sound that echoed in my skull. I bandaged my arm, hid the burn, and didn't try again. The mark was stronger than me. The whisper was too. I hear other sounds now. Not just the whisper, not just the singing. Footsteps, soft and deliberate, pacing the halls at night. Knocks, faint, from the attic, the basement, places I don't go anymore. Once I heard my name, spoken low, like a sigh. Not my voice, not human. I locked my bedroom door, pushed a dresser against it. The whisper was there, inside, waiting for me to answer. I didn't. I won't. The dreams are worse. Every night the woods. Fog curling around trees, thick and gray, hiding something that moves just out of sight. The old man is there, sometimes, his face falling apart, his voice a rasp. You looked, he says, and the mark glows, pulling me toward the trees. I wake before I reach them, heart pounding, the whisper still there, soft and patient. It knows I'm close to breaking. It's waiting. I found the book again. Not on the shelf, but on my bed, open to a page I couldn't read. The handwriting was clearer now, sharp and black, like the mark. I didn't touch it. I shoved it under the bed, piled boxes on top, but I could feel it. The whisper was louder that night, triumphant, like it had won. I don't know what it wants, not really, but I feel it. A pull, a need, something vast and cold waiting in the woods. I'm at the edge now. I feel it every moment, the mark burning, the whisper pressing, the shadows closing in. The house isn't safe. The world isn't safe. I keep the lights on, keep moving, keep my eyes forward. But the pull is stronger, the woods closer, the whisper louder. I don't know how long I can hold out. The old man was right. I looked back, and now it has me. I'm still here for now. But the mark is spreading, the whisper is growing, and the woods are waiting. I feel them, every second calling me. I don't know if I can keep saying no. The shape that feeds on fear. The street lamp flickered outside my window, casting a frail glow across the room. I sat on my bed, knees tucked close, staring at the wall where my shadow should have been. It was there, of course, stretched long and thin, but something was wrong. The edges seemed to quiver, like heat rising off pavement in summer. I blinked, thinking it was just fatigue. Long days at the library, hunched over dusty books, did that to a person. But when I moved my arm, the shadow didn't follow right away. It lagged, just a heartbeat, then snapped into place. I laughed it off. A trick of the light, I told myself. The bulb was old, probably dying. Shadows don't move on their own. They can't. Still, I got up and checked the lamp, twisting it tighter in its socket. The flickering stopped, but the unease didn't. I glanced back at the wall. My shadow was there, obedient, mimicking my stance. I waved. It waved. I sat. It sat. But the quiver remained, a faint ripple at its edges, like it was trying to peel itself free. That night, I dreamed of a figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was tall, too tall, its head brushing the ceiling. It had no face, just a void where one should be, and it leaned forward, watching me. I woke with a gasp, heart pounding, and fumbled for the light. The room was empty. Just me, my bed, and the shadow on the wall. It looked normal now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it had been watching me sleep. The next morning, I walked to the library, my breath fogging in the autumn air. The town was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you notice every sound, a branch snapping, a car humming in the distance. I kept my head down, but my eyes darted to my shadow on the pavement. It stretched ahead of me, long and lean in the morning sun. I stopped to tie my shoe, crouching low. My shadow crouched too, but its head turned. Just slightly. Toward me. I stood quickly, heart racing, and started walking again. Faster now. The shadow kept pace, its edges blurring as if it were fraying at the seams. I told myself it was nothing. Just my imagination, stirred up by a bad dream and a late night. But when I reached the library and stepped into the fluorescent light, my shadow seemed to hesitate at the threshold before sliding in behind me. Work was a blur. I shelved books, answered questions, and tried to ignore the creeping dread. By afternoon, I was alone in the stacks, surrounded by the musty smell of old paper. The library was nearly empty, just a few regulars flipping through magazines. I was reshelving a cart of novels when I saw it again. My shadow, cast on the floor by the overhead lights, was wrong. It was too tall, its arms too long, and it stood still while I moved. I dropped the book I was holding. It hit the floor with a soft thud. My shadow didn't flinch. It just stood there, a dark silhouette that didn't belong to me. I stepped back, and it finally moved, sliding across the floor to match me. But it was slow, deliberate, like it was deciding when to follow. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? My coworker, Ellen, would laugh and say I'd been reading too many ghost stories. My brother would tell me to get more sleep. But I knew what I saw. That night, I locked my bedroom door and kept the lights on. I didn't sleep. I sat up, watching my shadow on the wall. It stayed still, but I could feel it waiting. For what, I didn't know. The days that followed were worse. The shadow grew bolder. I'd catch it moving when I wasn't, sliding along the wall as I sat still, or stretching toward me when I turned away. It was subtle, so subtle I could almost convince myself it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was watching me, studying me. And every night, in my dreams, the faceless figure grew closer, its void face inches from mine. By the 5th day, I was afraid to leave my house. The shadow was always there, closer now, its edges sharper, more defined. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was something else, something that wore my shape but wasn't me. I started to wonder if it was alive. If it was waiting for me to slip, to let my guard down. And the worst part? I could feel it getting stronger, like it was feeding on my fear. I didn't know what it wanted. But I knew one thing. It wasn't going to stop. The library closed early on Fridays, and I was grateful for it. The shorter workday meant less time under those harsh fluorescent lights, less time watching my shadow twist into something unnatural. I locked the front door, the keys jingling in my trembling hands, and stepped into the dusk. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves. My boots crunched on the gravel path as I hurried home, keeping my eyes on the ground. I didn't want to see my shadow, but it was there, trailing me like a stray dog. The street was empty, the houses dark. Most people were already home, tucked away with their families. I envied them. My apartment was a small, one-bedroom place above a bakery, the kind of place that should feel cozy but didn't. Not anymore. I climbed the narrow stairs, my heart thudding with every step. The hallway was dim, lit by a single bulb that buzzed faintly. My shadow stretched across the wall, and I froze. Its head was tilted, just slightly, like it was listening. I fumbled with my keys and pushed the door open, slamming it shut behind me. Safe. For now. I flicked on every light in the apartment, living room, kitchen, even the bathroom. The brightness helped, but not much. My shadow was still there, sprawled across the floor, its edges sharp and hungry. I avoided looking at it, busying myself with making tea. The kettle's whistle was a small comfort, a normal sound in a world that felt increasingly wrong. I sat on the couch, clutching my mug, and tried to focus on the TV. Some old sitcom was on, the laugh track jarring against the silence of the room. But my eyes kept drifting to the corner, where the light didn't quite reach. My shadow was there, pooling in the darkness. It was still, but it felt alive, like it was waiting for me to look away. I forced myself to stare at the screen, but the laughter felt hollow, mocking. Then the TV flickered. Just once, a quick blink of static. My shadow moved. Not much, just a slight shift, like it was leaning forward. I dropped my mug. Tea spilled across the floor, soaking into the rug. I didn't care. I was too busy watching my shadow, which was now standing upright, even though I was still sitting. I stood, my legs shaking, and backed toward the kitchen. The shadow followed, gliding across the floor. It didn't mimic me this time. It moved on its own, slow and deliberate, like a predator stalking prey. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. I shone the beam at the shadow, hoping the light would banish it. But it didn't. The shadow absorbed the light, growing darker, more solid. I ran to my bedroom and locked the door. My breath came in short gasps, my chest tight with panic. The room was small, cluttered with books and clothes, but it felt vast and empty now. Just me and my shadow. I turned on the bedside lamp, and the shadow shrank, retreating to the wall. But it was still wrong. Its arms were too long, its head too large, like a distorted version of me. I sat on the bed, clutching the flashlight, and tried to think. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe this was stress, or sleep deprivation, or something else entirely. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't in my head. It was real, and it was getting closer. I could feel it, a pressure in the air, like the room was holding its breath. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up, the flashlight trained on the wall, watching my shadow. It didn't move again, but it didn't need to. Its presence was enough, a constant reminder that it was there, waiting. I started to notice things I hadn't before. How the air felt heavier when I looked at it, how the room seemed to dim around its edges. It was like the shadow was drawing the light into itself, growing stronger with every passing hour. By morning I was exhausted, my eyes burning from lack of sleep. I called in sick to work, something I'd never done before. Ellen sounded concerned, but I brushed it off, saying it was just a cold. I couldn't tell her the truth. I couldn't tell anyone. Who would believe that my shadow was alive, that it was watching me, waiting for something I didn't understand? I stayed inside all day, keeping the curtains drawn and the lights on. But even in the bright apartment, the shadow was there, lurking in the corners, stretching across the walls. It was closer now, its edges sharper, its form more defined. And I knew, with a sick certainty, that it wasn't going to leave me alone. The days blurred together, each one heavier than the last. I stopped going to work. I stopped going outside. My apartment became a fortress, every light blazing, every curtain drawn tight. But it didn't matter. The shadow was always there, clinging to the walls, the floor, the ceiling. It was no longer just my shadow. It had a presence, a weight, like it was pressing against the air itself. I tried to distract myself. I read books, watched movies, cleaned the apartment until my hands were raw. But nothing worked. My eyes always found the shadow, and it always found me. It was bolder now, moving even when I was still. I'd catch it sliding across the wall, inching closer, its edges rippling like water. Sometimes I thought I saw a face in it, not mine, but something else, something hollow and hungry. One night I heard it. A whisper, faint and raspy, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. It came from the corner of the room, where the shadow was darkest. I froze, my book slipping from my hands. The whisper came again, sharper this time, forming a word. My name. Not the name I went by, but my full name, the one nobody used anymore. The one I'd left behind years ago, when I moved to this town to start over. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The whisper stopped, but the air felt thick, charged, like the moment before a storm. I stared at the shadow, and it stared back. Its edges pulsed, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was rooted to the spot. The shadow didn't move, but I could feel it watching, waiting for me to break. I started researching. I scoured the internet, old books, anything I could find about shadows that moved on their own. Most of it was nonsense, ghost stories, urban legends, pseudoscience. But one article, buried deep in an obscure forum, caught my eye. It was about something called a hollow follower, a shadow that wasn't a shadow at all but a parasite, latching onto a person's fear. The more you noticed it, the stronger it got. The more you feared it, the closer it came. I slammed my laptop shut. The room was silent, but the shadow was there, stretching across the wall. It was taller now, its head brushing the ceiling, just like the figure in my dreams. I tried to ignore it, to pretend it wasn't there, but that was impossible. It was everywhere, in every corner, every reflection. Even when I closed my eyes, I could feel it, a cold presence that made my skin crawl. I called my brother. He lived hours away, but his voice was a lifeline. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to sound sane. I said I was stressed, seeing things, needed a break. He offered to come visit, but I told him no. I didn't want him here, not with this thing. I didn't know what it would do if someone else saw it. If it would follow them too. That night, the whisper came again. Louder this time, more insistent. My name, over and over, like a chant. I pulled the blankets over my head, like a child hiding from a monster. But the shadow was still there, seeping through the fabric, pooling on the bed. I could feel it, heavy and cold, pressing against me. I didn't sleep. I didn't dare. By morning, I was a wreck. My eyes were bloodshot, my hands shaking. I couldn't eat, couldn't think. The shadow was everywhere now, even in broad daylight. It followed me from room to room, its edges sharper, its form more solid. I started to see details: long fingers, a hollow chest, a head that tilted just slightly when I looked at it. I tried to fight it. I bought brighter lights, hung mirrors to confuse it, even burned sage I found at a corner store. Nothing worked. The shadow was stronger now, its whispers louder, its presence heavier. It wasn't just watching me anymore. It was reaching for me, its dark fingers stretching closer with every passing day. I started to wonder if I was already gone. If the shadow had taken something from me, something I couldn't see. My reflection in the mirror looked wrong, pale, hollow-eyed, like a stranger. The shadow stood behind it, taller, darker, more real than me. And the worst part? I could feel it inside me, a cold weight in my chest, like it was trying to hollow me out. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. But I knew one thing: the shadow was winning. I stopped looking at walls. It sounds ridiculous, but it was the only thing that made sense. If I didn't look, maybe the shadow wouldn't move. Maybe it wouldn't grow. I kept my eyes on the floor, on my hands, on anything but the dark shapes that followed me. My apartment was a maze of light now, every bulb burning, every corner illuminated. But it didn't help. The shadow was still there, lurking just out of sight, its presence a constant pressure against my skin. I hadn't left the apartment in days. Groceries ran low, dishes piled up in the sink, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The world outside felt too big, too exposed. The shadow would follow me, I knew it. It was part of me now, stitched to my heels, growing bolder with every moment I acknowledged it. So I stayed inside, pacing from room to room, avoiding mirrors, avoiding corners, avoiding anything that might show me what I already knew was there. The whispers had stopped, but that was worse. Silence was heavier, more oppressive. It felt like the shadow was done talking. It didn't need words anymore. It was close now, so close I could feel its cold breath on the back of my neck, even though I knew shadows didn't breathe. I caught myself holding my own breath, waiting for it to move, to act, to do something other than watch. One evening, I made a mistake. I was tired, my eyes heavy from nights without sleep. I sat on the couch, staring at the TV, the same sitcom playing on a loop. The laugh track was grating, but it was better than silence. I let my guard down, just for a moment, and glanced at the wall. The shadow was there, but it wasn't mine. It was massive, filling the entire wall, its arms stretched wide, its head tilted at an impossible angle. And it was moving. Not mimicking me, but swaying, like a tree in a storm. I screamed. The sound tore out of me, raw and desperate. the shadow didn't flinch. It just kept swaying, its edges pulsing, its form growing more solid with every heartbeat. I scrambled to my feet, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered, plunging the room into half-darkness. The shadow grew larger, spilling across the ceiling, the floor, the furniture. It was everywhere, a living darkness that swallowed the light. I ran to the bathroom, the only room with a lock that felt solid. I slammed the door and slid to the floor, my back against it. The light was on, but it was weak, flickering like the street lamp that first night. My shadow was there, on the tile, but it wasn't alone. Another shape stood behind it, taller, darker, with long fingers that reached for me. I closed my eyes, pressing my hands against them until I saw stars. I wouldn't look. I couldn't. But I could feel it. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of eyes. It was watching me, studying me, waiting for something I didn't understand. I started to cry, quiet sobs that shook my whole body. I hadn't cried in years, not since I was a kid. But now, alone in that tiny bathroom, I felt like a child again, small and helpless against something I couldn't fight. I don't know how long I stayed there. Hours, maybe. The light flickered again, then went out. The darkness was complete, but I could still feel the shadow. It was closer now, so close I could almost touch it. I didn't open my eyes. I didn't need to. I knew it was there, waiting for me to break. When I finally stood, my legs were numb, my body aching. I fumbled for the door, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the knob. The apartment was silent, the lights back on, but the air felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. I stepped into the living room, and the shadow was there, waiting. It was different now, more solid, more real. It had a face, not a face, but a suggestion of one, a hollow space where eyes should be. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just stood there, staring at the thing that wore my shape. It didn't move, but I could feel it pulling at me, like a tide dragging me under. I was tired, so tired, and part of me wanted to give in, to let it take whatever it wanted. But another part, small and stubborn, refused. I wasn't done yet. Not quite. I couldn't stay in the apartment anymore. It wasn't safe. It hadn't been safe for a long time, but I'd been too stubborn, or too scared, to admit it. The shadow was everywhere now, not just on the walls but in the air, in my thoughts, in the spaces between my breaths. It was part of me, and I was part of it, and that thought was worse than anything else. I packed a bag. Just the essentials, clothes, my wallet, a flashlight. I didn't look at the walls as I moved through the apartment, didn't let my eyes linger on the corners where the shadow waited. I could feel it watching, its presence heavy, like a hand on my shoulder. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to leave. I had to try. The street was dark, the street lamps flickering as I stepped outside. The town felt different now, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. My shadow stretched ahead of me, long and thin in the dim light. I didn't look at it. I kept my eyes on the ground, my feet moving faster with every step. The air was cold, biting at my skin, but it was better than the suffocating weight of the apartment. I walked for hours, maybe longer. The town was small, and I soon ran out of streets. The road stretched into the countryside, lined with trees that loomed like silent giants. My shadow followed, of course. It was always there, sliding across the pavement, the grass, the trunks of trees. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. It was too close now, too real. Its edges were sharp, its form solid, like it was stepping out of the darkness and into the world. I stopped at a gas station, the only light for miles. The clerk barely looked up from his phone as I bought a coffee and a map. I didn't know why I needed a map. I wasn't going anywhere specific, but it felt good to have something solid in my hands. I sat outside, on a bench under a buzzing neon sign, and unfolded the map. My shadow sat with me, its head tilted, watching. I don't know when I realized it was speaking again. Not out loud, not like before, but in my head. A low, steady hum, like a radio tuned to static. It wasn't words, not exactly, but I understood it. It wanted me to follow. To go somewhere. I shook my head, trying to clear it, but the hum grew louder, more insistent. I folded the map and stood, my legs moving before I could stop them. The road led to a forest, a place I'd never been. The trees were dense, their branches blocking out the moon. My flashlight beam danced across the path, but it was weak, barely cutting through the darkness. My shadow was everywhere now, stretching across the trees, the ground, the sky. It wasn't following me anymore. It was leading. I don't know how long I walked. Time felt strange, like it was bending around me. The hum in my head was louder now, a chorus of voices that weren't voices. They called my name, my real name, the one I'd buried years ago. I wanted to stop, to turn back, but my feet kept moving, pulled forward by something I couldn't see. The forest opened into a clearing, and I stopped. The air was still, the silence absolute. My shadow stood in front of me, taller than the trees, its form solid and real. It had a face now, or something like it, a hollow space that pulsed with darkness. It reached for me, its fingers long and cold, and I felt it pull at something deep inside me. Not my body, but something else, something I didn't have a name for. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just stood there, staring into the void of its face. It was me, and it wasn't. It was everything I'd ever feared, everything I'd ever hidden. And it was tired of waiting. I took a step forward. Just one. The shadow smiled, or maybe it didn't. Maybe it was just the darkness shifting, reshaping itself into something new. I felt it slide into me, cold and heavy, filling the hollow places I didn't know I had. The world tilted, and I fell, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I was already gone. When I woke, the forest was gone. The town was gone. I was back in my apartment, sitting on my bed, the lights blazing. My shadow was there, on the wall, normal again. But I wasn't. I could feel it inside me, a weight that would never leave. And I knew, with a quiet certainty, that it had won.